Wow. Oh, it always just, you know what the thing is, Charlie, about that intro is that the last one, I didn't use it at all for the March book club because we were reading a book that was very religious in nature, and I just could not have the huge dick thing. All the there's too many funny things, Easter eggs buried inside of that. I was like, this is not appropriate for the robe. I'm gonna just save it for summertime with Charlie. Oh, I don't hear you. I think you muted yourself. Okay, now I asked.
I said I appreciate the hell out of that. Yes, thanks for holding off the intro until I'm available.
Oh, of course. Oh, of course. Masterpiece. Anyway, welcome everybody. This is an exciting and also a little bit of an upsetting night because we have to say goodbye to a book, which is all about learning how to say goodbye to something that was sweet and good. And even though you soaked it all up when you were in the middle of it, time marches on and you cannot reason with it. That is the fourth and final installment of Dandelion Wine by Bradbury. And let me just say, up front, Charlie, I am going to go through his entire anthology, and I just want to have everything that he's written now, because I read Fahrenheit some point.
I never have.
I don't remember it. But and I know that's like the least he's known for his science fiction. I want Something Wicked This Way Comes. I want to do Fahrenheit. I want to do a few others. So I'm gonna go on a Bradbury kick soon.
Yeah, I understand. I liked it. I liked this book. This was great. I mean, it was perfect timing, of course, with the summer. For me, I felt very connected to it, having a 12-year-old daughter who was starting summer,
Mm-hmm.
and so it kind of just it got off on the right foot, and it felt very fitting and authentic in the time of year that we were reading it. And given my current personal situation, I was like, yeah, I can kind of see the world a little bit easier through her eyes, considering she's here, and I can, I see what's important to her. And I read the book and I think, how they how they interact with each other and what they think is important. And I wonder, does she think this is important, or is that old timey stuff? Like, is that's 100 years ago? Does anybody care about that? Would she appreciate the dandelion wine? Would she think that was kind of like a cool concept? Or
Well, what's interesting about this is that when I read this, especially from the standpoint and analyzing the two brothers, Douglas and Tom, you see Douglas that is just, you can just tell he's stepping through a threshold. Obviously, there's these last chapters here. It opens up with him. He is consumed by the realization that one day he is going to die. It's not even about now seeing the elder statesman in your life get older and then also pass on, and seeing the old people leave and the young people become the new heads of the family, and just that cycle of life. He's thinking about him, that he's going to die one day. And that's just one threshold that he's stepping through. And of course, it becomes one of those things where it gives way to very profound thoughts that are good exercises in really trying to grasp and have a respect and understand your own mortality. Everybody needs to reflect on that. And then, it also gives way to paranoia and things that take away and sap you of all those opportunities that you need to enjoy, which is what we get from the junk man. We get the lesson from the junk man about enjoying things and just really soaking it up. And many characters are like that here as well. We have some tragic ones, but a lot of there too. But even though Doug is passing through that threshold into new realizations and reflections, Tom, in his naivete, is still very, very wise and gives you a couple of really simpler nuggets of wisdom that perhaps because he hasn't gotten to that threshold yet, Douglas sees where he's coming from, but also can't. There's a divide between them, and even though there's just like a 2-year difference, so it's crazy to see that there's like a gradient of wisdom that people, these characters are achieving just in 2 year increments alone, because there's some things that Doug is saying that Tom just he can't even try to grasp if you held his hand. But on the other hand, sometimes he just drops a metric ton of wisdom on you that you wonder, does Tom even understand what he said? That was brilliant. So it's
Right.
yeah, it's just you talking about your daughter made me think about that slight difference and how everybody's walking through those thresholds.
Well, Doug comes to understand that you can't depend on things, machines or tennis shoes or trolleys, he's learning this lesson as he's getting older. He's saying sometimes, these things they don't last.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we don't last. It's not just the tennis shoes and the trolleys, but it's me. It's this epiphany that's like, oh my God, it's like everything.
Yeah, there's this feeling with the arcade. Now we're going to get to the wax witch. So this is a whole point where Doug is being driven to do unreasonable things in order to make a bargain to make things better, thinking that this witch, which it actually has it has a feeling of the movie Big, going to the Zoltar
It
speaks.
absolutely does. That's exactly kind of what I was thinking. I was thinking like this was along the boardwalk somewhere.
Yeah, and you know where that boardwalk is, right? It's 3 miles that direction. It's Playland. So next time you come over here and we go out to a Yankee game, we got to make sure that we go to Rye Playland that night so you can see the boardwalk where Zoltar was.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but it feels like Big, and but of course it goes in a completely different direction. Where Doug, they believe that this was an actual a witch that was trapped in there in this glass coffin, and that she was being mistreated by the owner. What's his name again? I forget what his name is.
I forgot his name, but I know that Napoleon apparently is responsible for putting this witch in the wax, which is a wild tale.
Yes. Yeah, it's a wild tale, but then again, there's the reasoning for it. Let me see here. How could we know that she warned us? She didn't even know ourselves until we got away from here. He made her tell. Put coins in the machine. That's one thing she can't lie on. The cards, all them, terror skulls, the bones, and just keep telling the truth. And she gave him a card, sure, 2 little knights on it, no bigger than kids, you see. That's us, clubs in our hands, coming down the street. On the one last time, cried Mr. Black from the cave inside, I'm putting the coin in. That one last time, damn it, tell me this the arcade is ever going to make money. Do I need to declare bankruptcy? So Mr. Black, there he is. Mr. Black is having a hell of a time keeping some of these machines working. They think, because they think that he's about to, go to war with her, because, there's some kind of like a magical vendetta going on. And of course, Douglas is just driven by this madness of wanting to be able to escape death and making to trying to make deals with anybody or anything that has the power to do it.
We can have like unlimited wishes. That sort of thinking.
Here you go. But why? Tell me why all this running around for her, Doug. Why? This is on page 199. Why? Douglas blinked and stopped. Things had gone so fast, he had run so far, and his blood was so high, he had long since forgotten why. Only now, as they moved again along the sidewalk, shadows like black butterflies on their eyelids, the thick smell of dusty wax on their hands, did he have the time to reason why, and slowly speak of it. His voice was strange as moonlight. Tom, a couple of weeks ago I found out I was alive. Boy, did I hop around, and then just last week in the movies, I found out I'd have to die someday. I never thought of that, really. And all of a sudden, it was like knowing the YMCA was going to be shut up forever, or school, which isn't so bad as we like to think, being over for good, and all the peach trees outside town shriveling up, and the ravine being filled in and no place to play ever again, and me sick in bed for as long as I could think, and everything dark, and I got scared, so I don't know what I want, but help me, Mademoiselle Tarot, but that's just it, taken by... just driven to do something weird and crazy. And, good on the father for not wigging out on him. They have this, the father comes in and actually helps them get this wax witch out of the ravine and put it together and make right with Mr. Black.
he could have easily been like, get your ass back to the house.
Yeah, that's it. So there's so much more. There's just so much, but I understand what he's going through because I've been watching a lot of old family videos lately, and of course, you're just watching people who are old now, vital and young back then. You watch people that were old back then, long since gone, and it's just all the passage of time becomes very, very in your face, and you think about it a lot. So I understand, and over time, you just gotta find new ways of going around it. But now they're in August. Now they're in August, and I love how they use the cicadas, that rhythmic chirping of the cicadas to really use as a plot device there. But then we get the junk man. Here comes Mr. Jones. And what'd you take away from the junk man?
I wrote down Mr. Craigslist. He just had everything. He was an interesting guy, He's sort of you know what I thought? I thought they could have some fun with him in the movie. You know what I mean? He'd be a good character to have some fun with. Junk man that just kind of like sings as he kind of goes off down the street, and he's sort of always around. He's been watching these kids forever, and they think he's some guy that's got fed up of working in Chicago, and maybe he's a millionaire or doesn't need the job because he doesn't sell anything. He just gives it away, and he's just making it available to people. It's kind of a metaphor, I'm just making this information available to people. If you want it, grab it. If you don't, that's fine. You're sort of plop, 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 walking down the street. Keep going. I'll see you tomorrow. And he moves around at night a lot, they said. They talk about how he's up in the middle of the night, and he might smoke a cigar with some guy if he sees him out on his porch. I mean, what a simple time. What an interesting time.
And he's a doctor.
There's a guy like that exists.
He's a doctor in his own right, too. Because, of course, when we learn about him here, I love that part about him, that there's suspicion that he has the hands of somebody who never really worked before, and everybody knew.
Right. That was kind of his giveaway. Was his hands were a little bit too clean for a junk man.
Too clean. That this guy had already made his bones. He had already achieved what he wanted. He had enough. Now he's just doing whatever he wants, and it's something so important. And it comes to the point where he actually becomes a little bit of a homeopathic doctor in many ways, to see what's wrong with, especially when Doug has this fever that we know it has just to be the buildup of stress. It has to be this kind of an existential crisis that's manifesting in the form of a summer flu. And if anybody's ever had the flu in the summertime, man, that just there's nothing worse. But it's incredible. I see Kate in the chat room says, Frank, I live in a place that's quiet, and you can tell who's coming down the road by the sounds that you hear in the distance. And here's where we have this. I love this whole part. He couldn't stand churches, though he appreciated their ideas and having a tendency toward preaching and decanting knowledge. He bought the house, the horse, and the wagon, and set out to spend the rest of his life seeing to it that one part of town had a chance to pick over what the other part of town had cast off. He looked upon himself as a kind of process, like osmosis, that made various cultures within the city limits available to one another. He could not stand waste, for he knew that one man's junk is another man's luxury. So adults, especially children, clambered up to peer over the vast treasure hoard in the back of the wagon. Now remember, said Mr. Jones, you can have whatever you want if you really want it. The test is, ask yourself, do I want it with all my heart? Could I live through the day without it? If you figure to be dead by sundown, grab the darn thing and run. I'll be happy to let you have whatever it is. And the children searched the vast heaps of parchments and brocades and bolts of wallpaper and marble ashtrays and vests and roller skates and great fat overstuffed chairs and end tables and crystal chandeliers. For a while, you just heard whispering and rattling and tinkling. Mr. Jones watched, comfortably puffing on his pipe, and the children knew he watched. Sometimes their hands reached out for a game of checkers or a string of beads or an old chair, and just as they touched it, they looked up, and there was Mr. Jones' eyes questioning them, and they pulled their hand away and looked further on, until at last each of them put their hand on a single item and left it there. Their faces came up, and this time their faces were so bright, Mr. Jones had to laugh. He put up his hand as if to fend off the brightness of their faces from his eyes. He covered his eyes, for a moment. When he did this, the children yelled their thanks and grabbed their roller skates or whatever. What do you think that whole that almost that process there of listen, here is an array of things. You can have anything, there's no cost, you can take what you want. But there is some sort of an unspoken test about true desire and just taking something because you know you can. What did you take away from that?
Well, he trusted the kids to do that. You know, he made that comment to tell them. I couldn't help but think about if we could do that these days. You know what I mean? If you could just like you can't even leave an Amazon package out
No.
in some neighborhoods. You know what I mean? Like the idea of the junk man, like take what you want, but only take what you really want. It would just be like, you know, I don't know. I just kind of thought that just made me think. He just seemed like a nice. It did seem like a little bit like a test, a little bit like let's just just make sure it's something that you really want. But
I wonder what the people in
what
the
an
chat room.
interesting existence.
It
for
is.
this guy.
Well, and that was really just a setup for what he really was going to deliver.
Yeah.
Because the next chapter is the very very sick Douglas, who is in his delirium, because everybody has those fever dreams. In his delirium, I mean, they even had to bring him out to put his bed underneath the tree so that he can get some kind of a breeze that he wasn't going to be able to catch in his bedroom. And in his delirium, everybody's coming through. The great grandparents, all the characters from town. I was wondering where there was going to be a little bit of a montage chapter, because you needed some kind of a whirlwind chapter to bring all these people up to the front again. Something that really culminates, because that is it's a huge part of his character development, Doug, because there he is. Once that fever breaks, then he puts himself in a position where he's actually able to do something really special at the end in his grandmother's kitchen, being a little bit more proactive, that he doesn't have to, let things, he actually puts some things right, which I think is really great. But here's at the end, Tom goes to Mr. Jones, says we need help. He's not conscious, this mother says. Mr. Jones comes back, and here he goes. The air. Who will buy this air? Air like water, air like ice. Buy it once and you'll buy it twice. Here's the April air. Here's the autumn breeze. Here's papaya wind from the Antilles. Air, sweet pickled air, fair, rare from everywhere, bottled and capped and scented with thyme, and all you want of air for a dime. So he started giving Doug, all you need to lie quiet. You don't have to say anything or open your eyes. You don't even have to pretend to listen. But here, inside there, I know you hear me. And if it's old Jonas, your friend. And he says, some people said, he starts giving him this air that's been bottled up. There's just a lot of different. It's like, what is it? What could it possibly be? That's homeopathic medicine right there.
You're like a placebo.
Yeah, it's just I think he knows what's going on, especially once he got what he got from Tom, to understand this is growing pains. This is part depression. This is a body folding under stress. I mean, it's plenty of people get physically sick from stress, and that's exactly what happened to him. And he knew that the remedy was going to be something from the heart and not an actual tonic.
Right. Yeah. And that was insightful. And that's what you get from knowing these people your entire life. You know when something's off. He knew something was off.
Yeah. That's it.
Mentions how they mentioned the size of the town in here for the first time. Because I wondered, how big of a town is this? And so I have this vision of the junk guy, kind of wandering, going,
And it's a big town, no? Didn't he say like 20,000 people?
Yeah, I thought it was kind of big. Everyone seemed to know each other, though. I don't know.
Yeah.
different time.
I was envisioning something very, very small in my head, and that actually took me by surprise.
Me too. Me too. I thought it was probably maybe a third of the size of that.
That's that. Okay, so now here's what we have. Then next up along the way is, let me see here. What is this? This is Grandma. This is the big chapter. This is the big ending. So it starts off by really describing the wonderful array of food that that Douglas's grandmother would prepare for the entire family every night. Food that never really had any set way of cooking it. It was all by feel. It was always something new. They never saw the same thing twice, they said, but it came from such a deep well of instinctual knowledge of the kitchen and of their family, that it was always so nourishing and filling, and it was the staple of everything. It kept the entire family huddled together. And then in comes Aunt Rose. Aunt Rose, meddling, nitpicking Aunt Rose. Aunt Karen, might as well be Aunt Karen, comes in and tries to make things. And the whole problem is, I heard Doug. There's this one section over here where Doug is listening on the other side of the kitchen door while Aunt Rose is talking to Grandma. Says Grandma, says Aunt Rose, down again. This is on page 228. Oh, what a kitchen you keep. It's really a mess now. You must admit, bottles and dishes and boxes all over all the place, labels everywhere. How do you tell what you're using? I feel guilty if you didn't tell me to help here and set things right if I'm visiting. So she's here in town visiting, and she wants to give the grandmother a whole new type of way of looking at her kitchen, the way that it works. And she even introduces a cookbook. And at first, the grandmother's like, get the hell away from me. I don't want anything of that stuff. And then all of a sudden she starts becoming like, oh, tell me more about this. Tell me. And then she actually gives control over to Aunt Rose for a little while. The kitchen gets tidied. She even goes out and gets Grandma a new pair of glasses, so the old chipped ones are gone. And suddenly, the next time that everybody sits down for dinner, it is an appalling, bland, unappealing experience, and people are horrified. They think that the family is over, that life's, forget about the summer. The family's done.
Yes. Goodbye. Yeah. This was so funny. She gets the makeover. She got her hair done. She got some new glasses. She got cookbook. Everything's organized, and it's just not the way it's just not the way it normally is. And because of that, it's a reflection. It's not her. It's just not her. We don't. We eventually discover that you kind of need to go back to who you really are. But and this I connected with a lot because my summers that I spent in Tennessee, my grandma was like one of those old school East Tennessee grandmas that was like I was eating breakfast and she was asking me what I wanted for lunch and dinner. You know what I mean? Like always trying to feed you. Had a garden. They were growing food. They were canning food. All that depression level stuff. That way of viewing food and the process of eating. I mean, everything was clean, but it felt like it never ever really stopped. Felt like there was like constant cooking, and it wasn't like there was a ton of people in the house, but it was just a southern thing, and people would swing by the house. I always thought that was really weird, but people would just swing by out of nowhere. You're like, hey, what's coming? Hey, and they just come over and grab a basket of cucumbers that they would leave out for people. I was like, what is this?
I love the way this is all described. I loved it. What was it? All the villains were innocent in this moment of tender herbs, sweet celeries, luscious roots. The eye sped over snow field where lay, what is this? Fricassees? Salmagundis? I don't know. I know what
Some of these I didn't know.
Gumbos, I know. Freshly invented succotashes, chowders, regouts. The only sound was primeval, bubbling from the kitchen and the clock-like chiming of fork on plate, announcing the seconds and instead of the hours. I loved it. But then, of course, after Aunt Rose has her way with the kitchen and with Grandma, here's supper time on page 230. Smiling people stopped smiling. Smiling people stopped smiling. Douglas chewed one bite of food for 3 minutes and then pretended to wipe his mouth, lumped it in his napkin. He saw Tom and Dad do the same. People swashed the food together, making roads and patterns, drawing pictures in the gravy, forming castles with potatoes, secretly passing meat chunks to the dog. I wrote in the
Beatloaf.
absolutely. I definitely thought a Christmas story, but the only thing I can ask is, are you happy, Rose? That's what I asked over here. And then what was really, really amazing is Douglas found Aunt Rose alone cutting flowers in the garden next afternoon. Aunt Rose, he said gravely, why don't we go for a walk outside right now? I'll show you the butterfly ravine down that way. They walked together all around town. Douglas talked swiftly, nervously, not looking at her, listening only to the courthouse clock strike the afternoon hours. Strolling back, blah, blah, blah. And the boarders, all 10 of them, were seated on the porch stiffly. Grandfather, like a train conductor, a mayor, a good friend, came down the steps solemnly. Rose, he said, taking her hand and shaking it up and down, I have something to say to you. What is it? Said Aunt Rose. Aunt Rose, he said, goodbye. I said, man, I said, that is cold, but it's so necessary. You have to get out of here.
You don't have to go home, but you just cannot stay here.
You've ruined you have got to get out of here.
Get out.
It's just incredible. Where's Aunt Rose? We said goodbye to her at the station. Grandfather said, we all wept. She hated to go, but she sent her best love to you and said she would return again in 12 years. Grandfather took out his solid gold watch, and now I suggest we all repair to the library for a glass of sherry while waiting for Grandma to fix one of her amazing banquets. But here's the thing. Grandma seems to not be able to get her mojo back. And I'm like, son of a bitch, Rose. You know, still, she's
put the whammy on her.
She's gone. But then here's the thing. This is where Douglas, this is the breakthrough for Douglas. He came through for the family. The one thing he could control is that he can put the kitchen back to the way it was. He can switch out Grandma's glasses again. He can just allow her to let go and get back to the normal order the way that he needed to let go as well, and not try to keep micromanaging everything. And my God, it was just so good at the end that Douglas was the one that set it right, and they got back down to eating. Grandma, he said, I ask only that tomorrow night for supper you can cook us this very fine volume. I am certain that we all agree that the time it reaches the table tomorrow at twilight, it will be delicate, succulent, brown and tender at the breast of the autumn pheasant. As the breast of the autumn pheasant. And the fact that this was such a late night transformation is what I loved as well, that they ate at like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
I know. That was cool.
Yeah. No, that was just tremendous.
They went to bed as soon as like the sun was coming up. They're like, well, time to go to bed.
That's that, man. And then here's the last few pages at 235. That's it. It's the end of summer. Doug and Tom.
There's pencils for sale.
Pencils.
Gotta be it's gotta be the beginning of school if there's pencils for sale. How dare he was outraged by it. How dare they? They ruined summer by selling pencils early.
Okay, so for me, this was the first time of the summer when my brother and I would see that damn commercial. It's the most wonderful time, and the parents are just like skipping through the aisles of the I don't know, of like Staples or something to get all their school stuff together again. They would play that over. I don't know if that was just a regional commercial. We would get that commercial every year in the last week of August, and that's when we knew, oh, you bastards.
That's the signal.
That was the signal.
Well, everybody's got their signal, and for these guys, it was these damn pencils for sale. It really set them off, and I suppose I can understand that. Whatever it is, whatever your thing is, once you acknowledge that it's over, that summer's over, you have to shift your mentality. You have to adjust or get left behind,
Hmm.
and you have to accept your fate that school's about to start,
I
and you have
know.
to prepare accordingly.
It's it always just hangs so it hung so heavy over you, but that's the way it was. Now, the way that this all ends, though, I think is yeah, there is the understanding. I love the just little drops about how iced teas gave ways to conversations about hot coffee,
Yeah.
and that we have the wind was coming in, and they're putting away their summer shoes for their hard shoes of winter, and it just everything is changing, and I love all that, especially if it's a well experienced summer. There's nothing more refreshing and exciting to me like the arrival of fall and winter and just going through it again. But again, this was one of those things where, because you're looking at it from Doug's perspective, it's a very delicate time in life where you're realizing that you are in probably the last years of a very special group of people that's all together at the same time. These multiple generations where you're the youngest. You're the youngest generation, and you're still the children for a little while, and you have this comfort all around. And that that bubble of comfort, that in very short order is going to start shrinking, and that you're not going to have that buffer from the out. You're not going to have mom to hold your hand down at the ravine for too much longer. You're going to be doing. You're the one that's going to be the hand holding. You're going to have to be the one that's telling the stories. You're going to be Colonel Freely at some point. You have to. That is a very delicate time, and so I understand why the end of this summer was very important. But at the same time, it is also a glorious transition from summer to fall that I still love to this day. And I love that we get back around finally to the wine. Grandfather looked up, considered this, and smiled. They're looking at they're in the basement looking at everything that's been bottled. Better than putting these things in the attic you never use again. This way, you get to live the summer over for a minute or two here and there along the way through the winter. And when the bottles are empty, the summer is gone for good, and no regrets, no sentimental trash lying around for you to stumble over 40 years from now. Clean, smokeless, efficient. That's Dandelion wine. The two boys pointed along the rows of bottles. There's the first day of summer. There's the new tennis shoes day. And there's the Green Machine, Buffalo Dust, Chingling Sue, the Terror Witch, the Lonely One. It's really over, said Tom. It'll never be over. I'll always remember what happened that day forever. And here's this really got me, because the grandfather, he knows. I mean, here he is, 70 years, his Tom's senior. He says it was over before it began, said Grandpa, which is kills me, because sometimes when I go live on my show every night, I'll say, well, it's June 24th, 2024. Might as well be 2028, though, because it was 2020 yesterday. And it's just time. There is, like, what is time? Especially when you're in grandfather's shoes, where I remember being 10, and now here I am in the twilight of my life. And it's just, again, there's Tom, just so precious in his naivete. I really do love Tom.
There's something about a perspective that you can only get by living a long enough time. You can't, you can understand it, of course. I mean, you can sort of put yourself in a person's shoes, but once you've lived long enough and you look back, your perception of time is different. You don't remember all the days. And when he says that I'm going to never forget this day, that he thinks, that he believes that he's never going to forget that day.
Yeah.
Because he's only got a certain number of days that he has to remember.
Right.
But when you've got this many days, it's hard to remember them all. And you got to prioritize. And what he's sort of thinking is, if you're lucky enough to get enough days, you're not going to remember any of these.
He says, "No, sir."
That's sort of reality, and that's the sad reality of it. But it is, it's such a great way of bookmarking time in a bottle, like Jim Croce, right?
Yeah.
But like, really, time in a bottle in the form of Dandelion wine. as these markers, almost like, you're excavating an archaeological dig, and you're going layer by layer, and you're like, this is the day I got the shoes, and this is the day those ladies ran that guy over with the green machine, this is the day that the colonel died, or he told me, he told us the story of the buffalo, and so it's a benchmark for all of these days, to see it, a visual representation of these days in the past. And so that's an interesting concept.
It's a wonderful concept. No, sir, Doug, Tom, you'll find as you get older, the days kind of blur. You can't tell one from the other. But heck, said Tom, on Monday this week, I roller skated at Electric Park. Tuesday, I ate chocolate cake. Wednesday, I fell in the crick. Thursday, fell off the swinging vine, and weeks full of things. Today, I'll remember today because the leaves outside were beginning to get all red and yellow. Won't be long before they're all over the lawn. I'll never forget today. I'll always remember. I know. Grandfather looked up through the cellar window at the late summer trees stirring in the colder wind. Of course you will, Tom. Of course you will. And it's just wonderful. And then of course it ends with everything running backwards now, like a matinee film. Sometimes there was people jumping out of the water onto the diving boards, because that is where everything's being put away. 1 minute porches are loaded, everyone's gabbing thirsty in the dozen. Next minute doors slam, talk stops, and leaves fall the trees like crazy. And that's it. It opens up in the first day of summer, and Doug is conducting the orchestra. Everybody's waking up, everybody's he's smelling the coffee, all the lights are all throughout town are starting to blink on. Now he's putting the town to bed, and it's the end. It's just wonderful. And that's the end of the story. That's it. It's a summer in 1928. Might as well be 2028. It doesn't matter. Because not, a friend of mine, very dear late friend of mine, always said, when she was, helping me develop some of the writing that I was doing years ago, she said, Frank, and I'll be quoting this for the rest of my life, a good piece of literature, it's never dated. If you really tap into something that is human, if you something that's, love, envy, jealousy, triumph, defeat, whatever the hell it is, that's going to last hundreds of years. There might be some stylistic changes in there, but even with the stylistic differences from 1928 and 2024, we had electronic vehicles. We had things, eerie things.
A lot of predictive programming in this.
It's eerie.
Book here, yeah.
It really was eerie.
Some of these concepts are timeless, of course. I mean, the idea of aging and your mortality, and having that recognition, and people close to you dying, and the acknowledgement that we're here for a short time. I mean, these are thoughts that everybody has, and has always had. I would suggest that they always had questions.
Yes,
it's gone to, it's over too soon, and he did such a great job of painting the picture of this town. Like, I'd totally want to live in this town.
I would. I mean? Like, even with the serial killer, I would.
Oh yeah, yeah, I would really. Worried about him, but
yeah.
The town itself seemed like everyone was like, hey, the junk guy would stop by, have a cigar with you up on your. I mean, that's pretty cool. It just seemed like everybody. I don't know if it was the time. I don't know if it was the location. I don't know if it was the whatever. They never mentioned throughout the book. There was never any sort of mention of them struggling financially. Everybody seemed to be doing pretty well. Financial component never seemed to be much of a factor. If anything, there were a bunch of people that were like probably closeted millionaires.
Yes.
sprinkled throughout the book too.
Yeah, there's some people there that did a lot of very extravagant traveling in their time. That
Might have been with the CIA.
could have been. The other thing there too is that overhead utilities. It just wasn't the case. There wasn't a lot there.
No,
The people weren't. There's obviously there were some electrical needs there, but it wasn't. People were still very, very independent,
it
and
didn't seem like compromise. Like there was very few times I read this and I thought, oh, that was like a real old, long, like old timey. They went without. The only thing I could think of was there was no air conditioning. Obviously, when he's up in the room and they're bringing him ice, you start to think probably it'd be great if you had air conditioning. But aside from that, they like you mentioned, they even had the electric cars. So I was uh, that was something that just kind of jumped out to me.
well, here's some of our audience members that got into this thread here. It starts with Vesper. And Vesper says, after reading the last sentence of this magical book, I laid it down far from my eyes to prevent my falling tears from soaking its pages. There's some moments like that. I'll tell you, Vesper and Charlie and everybody else, I would a lot of the times I would have the time with this reading in the morning before I did anything else or any of my preparation for the nighttime show, and I would do it with Aurora sitting right there on one of the back porch sofas, and she's sitting with her breakfast right outside in the back porch, and I'm sitting on my chair. I'm reading, and she's just listening to a little bit of music, and but she sees that sometimes I'm getting a little I have to put it down. I have to just breathe through some things, and I'm just thinking. I'm muttering to myself. I'm going. I take frequent breaks, and I'll go, wow, and I'll just shake my head, and she'll go, and she's wondering, what is it, Dad? Is it making you emotional? And I'll say, I'll say, actually, yes. Yes, it's a very emotional book. So the last couple of days that I've had this out and just reading and rereading some stuff, I'll see her sitting across the porch from me, and all of a sudden, she'll know that I'm looking over, and then she'll just put her head down like this, and I'll go, "What's the matter?" She goes, "That book is making me emotional." And I said, "You don't even know yet, girl. You'll see. You'll see. Wait till we get you reading. You're gonna love stuff like this." But Vesper, no doubt about it. Vesper says, "I cried for Douglas as he kissed goodbye his young summer. I cried for all the summers I myself have kissed goodbye. I cried for the fervent hope that the summer of 1929 was fair and kind to Douglas. He couldn't know that after all, that summer, the pumpkins took on a ghostly faces. The Great Depression would rear its ugly head. Ray Bradbury knew. His words gently remind us to bottle some dandelion memories and let the rest go to seed to cast our wishes and dreams upon the wind." Oh, Vesper always has. We always have some great contributions, and Vesper is one of them. Robert Solario says, "I love Mr. Jonas." Is it Mr. Jonas or Mr. Jones? Did I get that wrong?
Mr. Jonas.
It is? I'm sorry, everybody.
J-O-N-A-S.
I must have made some of you do a double take. I said Mr. Jones. I love Mr. Jonas. One thing I miss, moving out to San Francisco to 50 miles north. Another thing great food was that you could dump any piece of furniture or electronics or utensil on the corner and it would be gone in 20 minutes. I got some golf clubs, parts of a drum kit, and a beautiful side table. My pastor shared a story where he went to visit the mother of a parishioner who was in a coma. He went and sermoned her. A week later, she came out of the coma with nothing but great things to say about Pastor Bill, though she never had met him. So there's a little bit more to talking to Doug when he was out of it. That's great. Jalen Wennings says, "When we started this book, I figured there would be some summertime mischief, a la The Sandlot. While there had been some, the section in which Tom and Doug heist the tarot witch, was what I had hoped most of this book would have been about. But all the little short stories that comprised this book was really what captivated me. along with all the poetic language Bradbury uses. Overall, a fun pick, but wasn't entirely what I was expecting. But what a beautiful book club, sometimes reading something outside of your wheelhouse, looking forward to never ending story. Ah, it was, listen, I knew it was going to be outside of my wheelhouse, and I knew it
I had
was,
no idea what it was going to be about.
so
No clue.
I forgot who suggested it to me. Somebody in the audience said, "Hey, you should check out." First of all, it was Bradbury, so I said, "Oh, a Ray Bradbury book that's not
Can't be
science
bad,
fiction."
right?
Yeah, I said, "Okay, well then, you know
Sure.
what? To hell with it." But
And then you
yeah,
find out it's summer based, and you go, "Oh, we'll read it during the summer.
yeah,
Be a good fit." You know, we did summer last time, and we had a very summer theme with baseball, and so maybe that's just kind of the thing.
yeah.
Um,
Got to see
but
what pops up.
it did paint a picture for me of of a different time. I don't know, better time, different for sure. I don't know,
Well, last
better
year,
in some respects. You know, simpler for sure. Um, but then you see some of the same themes. You know, you see some of the same problems and childhood insecurities that if they didn't 100 years hasn't changed anything.
yeah.
Still feel it. You're still a kid. You still view the world the same way, you know, and you still um you know, you still wonder what's out there for you.
Well, many of us have a lot more years to figure that out, and or you never know. And that's the other thing there too. You just never know. Either whether you're moving away, what circumstance, people come and go, all ages. Wow, this is from Gypsy Princess 75. Wow, every section of this book had left me thinking. Well, I wasn't expecting that. What a great book choice, Frank. Thank you. Poor Douglas, all the excitement, the ups and downs of the summer really caught up with him. Quote, some people turn sad awfully young. No special reason, it seems, but they seem almost to be born that way. They bruise easier, tire faster, cry quicker, remember longer, and as I say, get sadder younger than anyone else in the world. I know, for I am one of them. End quote. I would add to that how Douglas felt all emotions and sensations very acutely, like joy, exhilaration, anticipation, fondness, attachment, and appreciation, etc. What a magical description of how Mr. Jonas revived Douglas with the two bottles of cool, exotic air from all over the world. I love that. I'm one of those people too. I've always been one of those people too that just very sentimental. Like I said, those earlier chapters, especially the what's her name and the giving all of her stuff to the two girls and Tom. I said
Yeah.
that was one of those chapters that really challenged my sentimentality. It's just how I've always been. I always thought about what I was doing when I was doing it when I was a kid, and I relate greatly with the Doug character. I also see a lot of my brother and Tom because we were separated by 2.5 years, and it's we had these summers, and I've been watching so much damn uh, family video lately. It's nuts. This is like my life from 1993 to 1995, because 96 was when things started getting a little dicey. But there you go. I also
93, 94, and 95 is what you were watching, and how old were you?
well 93 I was about 8 8 9 and 8 9 and 10. That's 93, 94, 95. Yeah, but it was just but analyzing my family and analyzing all the everything, just even in town. Like I was the other night I was watching a Columbus Day parade in my town from 1993, and just looking at everybody in the parade and everybody in town there, people walking down the street, Charlie, in full Indian headdresses in 1993. This is unheard of 30 years later. It's I mean, it would be national news that kind of a sacrilege would have been, so it's not even just the individual people in your life. It's just a greater cultural environment that we were all in. Where we had the leeway of exploring the world, making mistakes, making assumptions, and having our minds changed in a little bit more of a of a forgiving way, where we are, we're punished now for curiosity. We're punished now for a lot. I mean, so it gets micro and macro. So that's
Yeah.
yeah.
I listen, that's a time of my life. Those years I was very much um I was off in college. I was wrapping up college and getting out into the world, and it was a totally different, I mean, God, without I will have you know this. This is how old I am, but this is just a real interesting barometer for me. I'm the last college graduating class that didn't have email.
Oh wow.
Mm.
Wow, I got my first Juno account in like 96 or 97.
So I went through the last class to do it, to go through college without having address. So, I mean, now that's unthinkable. You know what I mean? Like you just would never be able to communicate or coordinate or whatever. So, yeah, I understand going back watching those videos. Don't do it to yourself. Don't do it unless you've got a DeLorean.
Oh, that's the real one though. That's something else. Steven in the chat room says, Frank, your gift of conversation has built a small town right here in this space. And that's
Yeah, no kidding. No, I know it's kind of true actually. Like the Frankly community, I envision it as like if you had a big meetup, like the way No Agenda does, like if you had a big meetup, I would imagine it would be at like the town square where or like at the park, like where everyone's sitting on benches and it would just be like a real like chilled out cool environment. I don't know.
we're gonna have to figure this
I have
out
this
one day.
assumption about the audience. I am the audience too, by the way, but the broader audience.
We got to figure out we get something, and maybe there's a reading of something that's short that we can do something like this together, a pamphlet that we could read together. Hold on, there's a couple more of these things here. Gypsy, what do we have? Five more minutes. Okay, Gypsy Princess also says, I love how Grandma cooks all of her unique concoctions that everybody enthusiastically devours. Silly Rose, though, thinking she could somehow improve on Grandma's methods. Cookbooks, organizations, phooey. That chapter left me feeling so validated. My kitchen is a mess, but it's my mess. It's my mess, and I know where everything is. Mostly. And while I do
Right.
use recipes sometimes, I rarely follow them as written. I make so many adjustments and substitutions. I have a lot of things I cook that I never make the same way twice. I just throw stuff in and my fellows eat it just fine. If not with the same rapturous gusto, then Doug's family ate Grandma's cooking.
I think there's some lessons in life in there too, right? Being able to adjust, being able to eyeball it. We don't have to necessarily follow the rule
Uh,
totally. We can kind of make it up as we go along. I know it when I see it. Trust me. Don't ask what's in this food. Stop it. She was very evasive with her answers about the food. She was not giving it up.
I know.
She
I
did
know.
not want to tell you what was in the food.
She was such a stickler. That's why I never thought that Aunt Rose was going to get through to her. And then all of a
I
sudden,
didn't either.
on the
did
other
not
side of the
either.
wall, it's the other side of the door. You hear Doug's like, "No, Grandma, don't do it." He should have just intervened right there. No.
Yeah, yeah. You should put a stop to that before it got carried away.
Yeah. I completely identify with the boys' horror at seeing school supplies displayed in the store, signaling the end of fun and freedom in the summer. And this was what, at the end of
Yep.
August? I think we.
Back to school ads on television is blasphemy.
I have to find that it's the most wonderful. Hold on. I'm going to.
Ugh.
Okay. Hold on.
No, I'm triggered just hearing that, and I'm not even in school anymore.
My parents, my aunts, especially my father and my aunts, my father and his sisters, they would do something horrible to me and Anthony all the time, starting around the third week of August. They would say, "School tomorrow."
Just
And we would
that's
be so mad.
bad because it just poisons the day. You know what I mean? Like you can't even appreciate the fact that it's not that you have the day off. Oh,
Oh, here it is. Hold on a second. Oh, this son of a bitchin' commercial. This was it. Window capture, Zoom call. Okay, it's me and Charlie. This was, I don't know if this is just a regional commercial, ladies and gentlemen. It's
Let's see
Staples,
it.
but it's Staples. It's back to school, 1996 commercial. Here you go.
It's the most wonderful time.
The parents.
It's that time of year again. They're going back. It's back to school time at Staples. Over 7,000 supplies at guaranteed low prices. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Son of a, it still gets me so mad.
I know the song, but I know it as a Christmas song.
Oh yeah, I know. Around here,
I don't associate that with back to school necessarily.
for us, it hits both ways. it hits us both ways. Oh man! All right, let's. Oh wait, it's here in Canada and it still runs. Oh wait, they still run it over here too. They do. Staples still runs it. I just don't know if it's how regional Staples is for people. I don't. All right, one more thing here. Gal 2021 says, I agree with Gypsy Princess 100%. John Carroll says, echoing Gypsy Princess with respect to people who turn sad awfully young, knowing that Doug is actually Bradbury himself. It's pretty incredible that in spite of his sadness, he was able to figure out how to live life fully and went on to become one of the greatest authors in American history. Well, let me just say this. I don't think it's not because I'm telling you, this is me too. It's not a debilitating sadness, but it's one of those things where, we were talking, we quoted a little bit of Hemingway sometime, a couple of sessions ago. And there's another really great quote I love from Hemingway. And he said once that a man has to take an awful lot of abuse to write a really funny book. You have to be able to take that abuse to be able to sit there and experience all those emotions and be sentimental about things and to be able to know why it hurts, to know why watching my daughter today frolic in the front lawn in the beautiful breeze and this pure sunshine, just watching her for a couple of seconds hurt as much as it elated me. It's not like you're living in sadness, but there's a new depth to every small little, maybe mundane experience that you can seize upon that. But of course it could become overdeveloped. You could become a weepy emotional mess. And I have become a little bit weepy since my daughter was born. I have to get it under control because I feel like I've got tits.
I went through that with my daughter too, where if there was a show on TV or a movie or something that had like something really horrific to kids, I just couldn't even, I was just go, I can't do it. For whatever, and it wasn't like I liked that stuff before, but I was sort of indifferent to it. I didn't really have an opinion one way or another, but I found myself being extra sensitive. Like I could really almost over empathize with what that scenario might be like. And so as a result, yeah, get a little sensitive in a way that I never did before.
10 times. It's just amplified. Here's a couple more real quick. Donnie B says the sweltering heat, the fear that Douglas may not survive, the healing powers of Mr. Jonas and paying it forward of such, the firm but gentle removal of Aunt Rose, and the awareness of time passing and potential for memories lost with age are part of the magic of Dandelion wine. But Bradbury's brilliant descriptions, such as the first few scarves of smoke unwound from chimneys and the faint faraway quaking of iron was the rush of black hard rivers of cold down chutes, remains a reason why I love this book. Thank you. And thank you, Donnie. I really appreciate you. I know that you're a new contributor here, and it's great to have, and I hope you're here for Neverending Story. Sharon says, I can't say this book resonates me with in any way. I don't remember my childhood at all, except for glimpses of something good that happened, something I've shared with you. I did thoroughly enjoy Dandelion Wine. It's composition painted like a mural in my mind. It's like another great read, a book I probably wouldn't have picked up on my own. Thank you. And I wish I can credit whoever the hell suggested it to me, because I wouldn't have picked it up either. Mark G says, I have to echo what everyone else has said about what a great summer read this was. Book club has made me realize how seasonal reading can be very impactful. The one thing I kept thinking as I read was, I wonder how my children and their friends will view me as they get older. Do I want to be thought of as a significant adult presence in their lives like Mr. Jonas or Colonel Freely, or just another adult they forget about as time goes on? These people left such a mark on Bradbury that he could recall them, and all those years later, life can get so busy sometimes that you don't realize how important your small actions can be to a child in either a good way or a bad way. It really made me more conscious of being present in every moment, especially when impressionable eyes are watching, whether it was a parent, leader, or just observed by a stranger. How we decide to act in every situation can go a long way for some child watching. I guess we all hope for after where we're gone that this is where someday somebody's good memory. Yes, indeed. And here's the last one. It's almost like that old Joe DiMaggio quote, Charlie, when it was toward, it's probably like the last couple of seasons of DiMaggio's career, and he had really lost a step, but he played like hell, playing through injuries, played like hell. And I think he was asked this somewhere in Boston by a reporter. Joe, why do you play so hard? You've done everything you needed to do. Why do you still play so hard? And he says, well, because there's somebody out there today that bought a ticket, some kid that has never seen Joe DiMaggio play. Yep. And that's so far beyond baseball mentality. That's huge. And I think that first thing I thought of when I thought about Mark G, just somebody that's impressionable is watching you do something that you think is meaningless, but they'll remember it. And the last one here is Kenny in Cleveland, says, Mr. Jonas sitting with an ailing and unconscious Douglas outside in the yard, and some people turn sad awfully young. He said, no special reason, and I'm one of them, I know. As I sat outside reading these words on an evening similar to what was described in that chapter, I had to pause to let the goosebumps shiver down my body. It's as if the words were pulled out of my soul. If you know, you know. Just brilliant. Well, Charlie, any closing thoughts as we put a rubber stamp of completion on another wonderful title?
No, I think, what a great choice. The universe picked it for us, right?
Did.
Because you're not even really sure who suggested it. Somebody did. You suggested it to me. I said, yeah, fine.
Let's go for it.
What's it about? I don't know.
I think
I'll find out.
I'm pretty sure it has a summary theme, Charlie. We got to do it.
And just a reminder of how of a time, seemingly long past, like a simple time, a little sad in some regards, because it seemed very pure. I don't know, easier. I don't know. And less scary. But then again, what you don't think about is the depression is coming. There's a big reckoning that's just around the corner for these people too. So it's like everything's great, and then we have the benefit of history, of looking back on this time period and seeing what happens right after this.
Well, then let me link last year to this year then, because I know we're talking about things that are, we're seeing where we are now and what's going on. If we look at simpler times, we wonder, is there any chance that we have that for that? But America has rolled by like an army of steamrollers, Ray. It's been erased like a blackboard, rebuilt and erased again, but baseball has marked the time. The field, this game, it's part of our past, Ray. It reminds us of all that was good and could be again. And that's what we gotta, could be again. So.
Be again.
All right, man.
Make America great again.
Let's do it. We're just one election away.
It's the most important one of our lives.
That's it. All right, man. Listen, I don't know what the hell we're gonna read next. I whatever. Who knows? We'll just let fate take us by the hand,
Exactly.
and we'll see it
Exactly.
again. But this is I'll get in touch with you after the show, and we'll figure out for you to a night for you to come back, just on quite frankly to hang out. But I really thank you for spending time with me this month
Sure.
on this, and we'll do it again
Thanks
soon.
for inviting me in. It's always it's a treat for me, and to get to ride shotgun on this with the audience and have them all. It's fun. It's a trip.
That's it.
So thanks for including me in that.
Have yourself a good night, Charlie. We'll talk soon.
All right.
All
Take
right.
care, everybody.
See you later. There's Charlie Robinson. And now it's just you and I. I say goodnight. And thank you so much, Ray Bradbury, for leaving behind a physical legacy of just, this is beautiful. It's like reading a mural. Very, very good way of saying it. Susan in the chat room, thank you. Dandy, Gypsy Princess, Kate, Frank, what a bittersweet evening. Thank you for all that you do. See you in a couple of months. See you, yeah. Hey, here's my question. What are you going to read in July? I wanted to get a couple of things out of the way in July. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do for July, but August, I'm going to be raring to go. Raring to go. It's only a couple of weeks, because by the third week of July, I will assign the chapters for the first week in August. So the real question is, what are you going to do for the next 3 weeks? 4 weeks. No, it's 4 weeks because you have all this week. And it's all June this week. So you have a month. You're right. Anyway, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Kate. I think Noomsy, brother Noomsy out there. What's going on, Joel? Mel, thank you so much. Linda, who else? AQ, ST, KF. I'm sorry if I missed you all. Anybody else, but I will see you guys tomorrow. Email, message, wherever you are, Patreon, subscribe, stars. Send me an email. Just whatever thoughts. If they keep coming to you, send them over to me. I love reading them. I'll talk to you all soon. Take care. Be well.